Everything will be okay when you're okay with everything. That's a quote from Michael Singer in his book, The Untethered Soul. And to me, that is the epitome of what Scorpio season is all about. Scorpio is fixed water. So it's water in the form of frozen emotions, frozen memories, frozen power. It's our life force energy that has got frozen in time. And you can say maybe through trauma, through traumatic experiences, and trauma being something that was too much at the time it happened. It was too much energy, too much joy, too much pain, too much of anything at a given moment that we weren't able to deal with it all at that time. Scorpio representing fixed water, water in the form of ice cold, deep down frozen waters. We get into those deeper layers of consciousness. In massage, I've been doing massage since 2007. Touching tissue, opening tissue up, you can literally feel it cracking, like breaking ice when we get to certain layers of the body. And it is really like moving emotional energy, like stagnation that has been held, patterns that have been crystallized in the waters of our body. Really, those patterns are what's informing so much of our daily choices that we make, but we're not necessarily thinking about what is frozen in the crystalline structure of the waters of our body. Scorpio season is our opportunity to touch in with those frozen waters, the cold waters, with the deep waters. This Scorpio season is especially potent. I'm going to use as many other words as I can besides intense. The word intense is a Scorpio word, and there's other ways to talk about Scorpio. So we're going to practice that today. The reason this Scorpio season is extra is because currently, right now, today, we have uh, the sun in Scorpio, of course, Mars in Scorpio, Ceres, which is known as a dwarf planet in Scorpio. We also have Mercury in Scorpio. And in direct opposition to all of that, all of those planetary forces in Scorpio, we have Jupiter, the great expander, so Jupiter is connected with abundance, with fertility, and a lot of, like in ancient Egypt, the deity associated with Jupiter is a fertility god, male. And so it's abundance, gold, riches, and gold is actually a metal of the sun. But Jupiter is in Taurus, across the way from all these planets that we have in Scorpio. Who else is in Taurus? Uranus. Uranus is known as a planetary force of evolutionary change. So, without getting into a complete astrology lecture, I can feel myself going down that path right now in my head, but I'm going to keep it to this week, and I'm going to keep it really embodied, something that you can actually feel tangibly in your body, and that's something that you can work with during this very deeply penetrating, psychologically deep week that we're having, and intense. Okay, so we're going to start off with today. Today is the 8th. This morning, I got up early so I could see Venus in the morning sky. Venus had just entered the sign of Libra. So Venus is currently at 0 degrees Libra. And tomorrow morning on November 9th, I'm just looking at my calendar on the computer there. November 9th, we're going to see, if you get up and see the morning sky, you will see a closing crescent. So the opening crescent is when the C of the moon is in your right hand, and you can see that growing little sliver. And then we get to a full moon. And then when we get to the closing crescent, you see with your left hand that C. So we're going to see that closing crescent with Venus. Now, this is important timing that is being marked every single month. It's a whole thing. I've done some videos on that previously, but all you need to know is that Venus is in a descending phase. And the way you know that is because when Venus meets a descending moon, we know that Venus is in a descending phase in her 584-day cycle. So I said her. I usually say Venus. I usually don't say him or her for the planets, but I caught myself there. I noticed I did that. And the reason I do that, oh God, psychologically deep. Scorpio can't do anything on the surface. Scorpio can't do anything on the surface. It's always like, what's below that? What's below that? So I'll go ahead and not do that right now because I want to focus on the astrology of the week. So when we have this conjunction of Venus and the moon, which we're having tomorrow morning at 2:18 a.m., that's Pacific Standard Time, but wherever you are on Earth, go out in the pre-dawn sky and see Venus with the moon. It's really, really beneficial to receive the light into your eye. It's like receiving light codes of information straight into the most ancient thing about you, the most ancient technology, receiving into the eye, getting that into your body to inform you in a very ancient technological way that we have mostly forgotten about. But it is really important to do that. Okay, so you're going to see that in the morning. Venus has entered Libra. We have that conjunction, which is basically like it's like a new Venus. It's like the beginning of a new cycle, a new phase of the cycle. So once we get through that, we're going to see Venus enters Libra. That's on Thursday. We have Mercury sextile Pluto. It's a fast thing. It doesn't last very long. Actually, Mercury is going through a process of leaving Scorpio, going into Sagittarius. So there's a big change happening. That's going to be on Thursday and Friday. When Mercury changes signs, especially after having sextiles are something that's beneficial, but you have to do something. It's not like gonna just happen. Sextiles are like the opportunity will arise, but you have to make it, you have to do something, whereas other harmonious aspects can be more, it just happens. Like a sextile, it is just a graceful flow of energy and you don't necessarily have to do something for it. A sextile, on the other hand, the opportunity presents itself and it's up to you to say yes, to engage in the activity to really reap the benefits of a sextile. So Mercury being in a sextile with Pluto on Friday gives us an opportunity to do something that we wouldn't normally do, and it might be evocative. It might, and that's because it's going to be in that alignment with Pluto, and Mercury will still be in Scorpio at that time. So it might be something evocative or like drawing you out, like drawing your, when you kind of feel scared, but you want to go ahead and take that leap and go ahead and do it anyway. And there's something powerful about that. So I can give an example. It's like, here's one. I am not good with getting into the C panel and doing X, Y, and Z. And okay, that's a lot. It is a lot. Like a coder showed me how to do something once, and it's like a coder, like a person who is a technology person. And I did not want to do it. And I was like, oh, but I went ahead and I kept going and I kept going. And I didn't ask the person to come do it for me. It took me 2 hours, what I know would have taken him 10 minutes, but I did it. And oh my God, afterwards, I didn't think I would feel this way. I really was like so frustrated and mad and pissed that I was taking 2 hours of my time that I could have been doing anything else. But when I got done, I was like on top of the world. I felt so good that I didn't have to rely on somebody else to do it. It's very empowering, something that really, you don't want to do it, but you go ahead and do it anyway. And there's this surge of power that rushes through your body and you're like unstoppable. You're feeling so good. So on Friday, we have an opportunity like that to do something that we don't necessarily want to do because it's Mercury in Scorpio in a sextile with Pluto. It can seem scary, basically. And it can also bring you a lot of power and growth. And then Mercury is going to enter Sagittarius. That if you have anything at the 0 degree of Sagittarius or at 0 degrees Pisces, this is going to be very, very important for you personally. Anything that you have within that range of the beginning of Sagittarius, the beginning of Pisces, I would use like a 3 degree orb. You're probably going to really notice this specific Mercury entering into Sagittarius. And the reason is because Saturn is going to be at a challenging 90-degree angle with Mercury. So what does that mean? Saturn, the planetary force that is about structures, form, our discipline. Saturn originally represented the circle of grandmothers. If you followed my channel for a while, you've heard me talk about this reframing of Saturn into a very powerful part of us becoming the authority figures in our lives, breathing back the authority that we've given to the government or that we've given to different authority figures in our lives. Saturn is ours. It is an inner planet. It is visible in the sky, which means it has to do with personal things. It's part of our personal dynamic. Anything beyond Saturn's rings, that's optional. I feel like you don't necessarily have to embody those planets, but the ones that we see, the ones that are visible to the naked eye, we are responsible for them. And Saturn is the last of the visible planets, and it is the one that is first to be given away to an outer authority figure. So we're breathing back in our Saturn power of inner authority, trust in our bones and our blood and our ancestral wisdom that lives within our blood and our bones. That is ours. So when Mercury enters into the new sign of Sagittarius, it right away is going to make a 90-degree angle with Saturn. Saturn has recently returned into a direct motion. So whatever had been stuck, I can tell you, I wanted to do a whole video just talking about Saturn. Well, first of all, I love Saturn. I love the Saturn principles. I'm very Saturnian. I know it's annoying to a lot of people, but that's me. Saturn went into Pisces on March 7th. Saturn went all the way up until 9 degrees of Pisces and then retrograded all the way back to 0, where it is now. On November 4th, Mercury went direct. And is that Mercury? No, Saturn. Saturn went direct. When Saturn went direct, when Saturn goes direct, it is it's like this whole vacuum of energy has been pulled back. We've been stopped. We've been feeling stuck. We've been feeling, what do you call this? Obstacles. And like things just get the brakes put on them. Saturn retrograde has a slow way down. So look at the Saturn part of your chart. Saturn in the 11th house is going to be putting the slowdown on your goals, dreams, and aspirations, on peer groups that you're in. If you have Saturn in the 10th house, you maybe had gone through a big slowdown, like remedial thing happening in your career, some setbacks, some obstacles in your career. Saturn in the 9th, you might have had some obstacles or setbacks or something slowing you down in a legal matter that you had, court cases, or in travel plans that you made to travel to another country, or your spirituality, your growth and development in your spirituality. So that pullback with Saturn being, and I'm sorry, I'm not going through all of the 12 signs, but just to give you a little example of what that pullback can feel like. Okay. And now when Saturn goes direct, it's like, woof, everything is moving forward in those areas of your life. I'll give you an example. When Saturn went into Pisces, that is my 11th house. And I was like, oh, Saturn in Pisces, I'm going to start my own Telegram group and I'm going to do all these cool things. And I did, slowed way down when Saturn went retrograde, like 50 people left my group. And I was on vacation. I went to Kauai for like a month in the summer, not like a month. I was gone for a month. And I wasn't doing my responsibility that I do every single day, which is write the astrology in that Telegram group and tell every movement of the moon every single day. And just keeping that group current on what's happening astrologically. And I didn't do it. Lots of people left. And as soon as Saturn went direct, I got invited into people's groups as the astrologer. I got invited to speak at a global world peace event as the astrologer. All these things have happened since Saturn went direct in my 11th house. So this big forward movement, it's like we had to slow way down so that we could be very grounded and centered and very sure, very disciplined and structured. And discipline does not mean rigid. It means really being a disciple to what it is that you are devoted to, being a disciple to your own devotions, and then taking those disciplined action steps every single day, the slow growth plan. That's Saturn. So when Mercury goes into that 90-degree angle with Saturn on Friday, is that Friday? That's actually going to be on Saturday. And that's 90-degree angle is a challenge. So right away, when we get into that, it's going to be Friday, Saturday, depending on where you live. And it's not just one, it is going to be, let's say Friday, Saturday, even we can push that into Sunday, matter of fact. This is going to bring up some big struggles. So for instance, part of being in these groups now, I'm like, oh, I need to write a new bio. Somebody asked, we need your bio. We need your like a little few sentence blurb so we know where to send people. I haven't wrote that yet. And they need it by, we're doing this event on Sunday. Can you come speak at it? Okay, so that 90-degree angle is a challenge. It's something that's like irritating. You have to do something. And because it's Mercury, it's going to have something to do with your mind. And also not only just your mind, it's like your software, your CPU, the functions of your thought patterns and the way things work in your brain and the way that you're able to receive information, process it, and then give something back out. And because it's in that 90-degree angle with Saturn, there's going to be something that is challenging, that's making you to think in a different way. Mercury in Sagittarius, the thought process will need to be more, okay, so in Scorpio, we go down into the depths, we recoil, we get into our frozen body waters, crystallized emotional memories, and a pattern that is so deep that we don't even remember how it got there. It could even be from before you were birthed, before you were born. There's so much research, oh my gosh, showing about how, I just made these the other day and I didn't put them together so good. Oh my God. Showing about how we are, when we are in our mother's womb, that there is, I put these together in a real hurry. I need to get better hooks for them. That we are already building up a genetic memory. We're already building up the hormones that our mother was feeling, at certain stress hormones that she was getting when a certain thing happened. If she was not getting good sleep, we're already getting so much information programmed into our little bodies before we're even born. And that is Scorpio season stuff. So with this 90-degree angle, we are getting an opportunity to think something really radically different. So Mercury in Scorpio is all that deep stuff. Mercury goes into Sagittarius and it's like the highest heights that you can go. It's the life of the party. It's, the direct opposite. Sagittarius is mutable fire. So it's the warmth that's generated from a fire. It's like Aries being the initial spark, Leo being the big flame, and then Sagittarius is like the embers and the radiating heat that comes off of the fire. So it's expansive. So we are being asked to think in an expansive way in that 90-degree angle with Saturn in Pisces. So it's going to be thinking in an expansive way about how to move forward in this particular area of life in your Pisces house, which has felt very stagnant for the last probably 6 months. So we've got that going on. That's Saturday. Let's look at Sunday. Sunday. We have a Mars opposition to Uranus on Sunday. This is such a huge thing. First, let me tell you about the Mars cycle, just briefly. Mars is our will to penetrate reality with our own desires. It is our urge to go out there and get the things that we want, to get our needs met, to have I call it like this. Venus has a longing for something. Venus is our feminine, oh, look, so perfect. Venus is that pleasure, this body. Let me take a sip of this delicious lucid dream tea. It's called Awake in the Dream, just like the school. Let me just get into this moment. Mars is the part that's like, get the cup and drink the thing. Mars goes out and gets the thing that Venus wants. So that's our action and our drive to satisfy a longing. So Mars, I call that our hero. It's the hero who goes on this quest. Initially, the quest may be like that longing. It's a personal thing. And as Mars goes on this quest, so it starts when Mars and the sun come together. This is the beginning of the quest. It's like a new moon. It's a new Mars, the beginning of a 2-year cycle that Mars will embark upon every 2 years or so. And initially, it's kind of personal. It's kind of a personal thing. But as Mars goes through the hero's journey, makes it all the way opposite to the sun. This is actually going to happen January of 2025. Yeah, January of 2025. Mars will make it all the way across opposite to the sun. And then Mars will slow down and eventually go retrograde. That's going to be February 24th, 2025 in the sign of Cancer. So these all will be in water signs. And then it's going to go and make its way back to that starting point. When Mars gets into that opposition, it's like the part in the hero's journey where it's like the climax, like a full moon. It's the big, whatever it was you were trying to do, you did it. And then we have the return journey where Mars is going to make it back into another conjunction with the sun. It's like you got home and a new journey will begin. So having Mars being in an opposition with Uranus, there's not many things that I can say that are very nice about that, really, because Mars is in Scorpio. That new Mars is going to take place on the 18th of November. So Mars is like right in that space of ending a previous journey. And I believe that previous journey was an air journey. I want to say it was in Gemini. But don't quote me because I'm not a walking ephemeris, although I wish I were. Anyway, if you know, leave it in the comments. So anyway, let's get back into this. So Mars is ending the previous hero's journey at the time of the new moon, which is going to happen on November 12th at 11:37 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So it'll be November 13th for everybody else that's not in San Diego where I am. And that new moon is like a new beginning. Scorpio new moon, no matter what, is always really, really deep. It really touches into our core memories, our core wounds, the core of our being. And what's in there? We hardly ever touch into that deeper layer of ourselves. We hardly ever do. We hardly ever take a deep breath. I promise you, if you sit down and take some deep breaths, especially if you don't have a regular practice of doing that, you will probably start crying. Just what's going on in the world right now alone, if you haven't been taking deep breaths and looking at what's happening. If you have done that, you have been crying. Breathing and looking at what's happening will definitely, it'll touch you. So new moons in Scorpio are always going to be like that anyway. But this one is so dynamic because Mars, see, everything needs to be taken in context. You need to understand where Mars is in the Mars cycle to really get the full context of what this new moon is going to be about. So now placing Mars there at the end of a previous journey, Mars has gained all the wisdom of that hero's journey. I believe it's in an air sign. I believe it was in Gemini, bringing back the knowledge and wisdom and being in an opposition with Uranus. Uranus is in Taurus at 21 degrees. Is it 20? Hold on, I got the chart right here. Don't have to be an ephemeris all the time. 21 degrees of Taurus. So Mars is at 22 degrees and the sun and moon being together in Mercury are at 20 degrees. So they're all very close. Very, very close. You can see here, sun, moon, 20 degrees, Mars, 22. That's Ceres there, and I'll talk about that briefly. But in perfect opposition with Uranus over there in Taurus. So I'm going to go ahead and say what I wouldn't want to say because I am that astrologer who's always wanting to look at the opportunities and the best case scenario and what, how this can benefit, how it can benefit. That's what I care about with astrology. And on your own personal chart, how can this benefit you? You're going to look at the polarity between Taurus and Scorpio, and this can be very beneficial. It can really inspire and motivate some huge changes. There's something really, really permanent that is being changed in the way we handle our resources, our money, our shared resources, our intimacy, the intimate connection that we have with Earth, with our bodies, with each other. Just the whole human nature is being radically changed right now. There's an evolutionary process going on so huge with Uranus getting into these degrees. Okay, so Uranus went to 22, maybe 23, and then now is retrograding. So at the time of the new moon, Uranus will be retrograde. Yeah, so to make sure. So this big, huge process happening in your personal life, and I will come back on and do all signs reading. I just not going to do it now because it's like 9 p.m. and I just felt like talking about astrology today. This process is personally for you, has the potential to awaken some of your greatest gifts that you have in the Taurus part of your chart. Looking directly opposite to that, having Mars, Sun and Moon, and Ceres all together in Scorpio. You need to look at the house Scorpio is in and understand that there is some real heavy action taking place. The action is because Mars and because Ceres. And I'll talk briefly about Ceres because I haven't touched that yet. And then the new moon is Sun and Moon coming together is always going to be a death and a rebirth. It's the ending of a previous cycle, the beginning of a next cycle. So we're ending a Libra lunation, starting a Taurus lunation. So this is a huge movement in that Scorpio. I hope I didn't say that wrong. I feel like I just said Taurus. It's a huge movement in the Scorpio part of your chart. So let's look at Ceres just briefly. Ceres in astrology, well, Ceres in mythology is the goddess of grain and wheat. Ceres was going to be, what's the lady's name? There's a goddess. Why is it slipping my mind right now? We'll just call her Ceres, but there's another name in the story where she is the mother of Persephone. Persephone is abducted and taken into the underworld. This whole ordeal happens. Ceres, that's not the name that they use in the Greek mythology. It's something else. Leave it in the comments for me if you've made it this far in the video, and I'm probably going to look it up because it's going to drive me crazy. Okay, so then Persephone eats some fruits and ends up becoming the queen of the underworld. I see the empowering story of an abduction, which turns into somebody owning it and becoming a queen of the underworld. This whole mythology of Ceres is like, while she didn't have her daughter, she canceled life. She's like, no seeds will grow. It will be barren until I get my daughter back. And then there's a compromise made. The compromise is that Persephone will come up to Earth for 6 months. Persephone will go back down to be the queen of the underworld for the other 6 months. While she is down in the underworld, there will be nothing on the earth. We will have no food, nothing growing, wintertime, basically. And then in spring, when Persephone comes back up, we will flourish and it'll be a garden of heavenly, earthly delights on earth. So Ceres in astrology teaches us and speaks to us about the compromises that we make for love. For it is a motherly parentage kind of sign. It is related to nurturance and also related to compromise. So there is a tragedy involved in Ceres. There is something very tragic about the loss of a child and having to make a compromise. So it's kind of, think just think about it and think about how that shows up on our world stage right now. So having that near Mars, near the time of the new moon, in an opposition to Uranus. So Uranus is also known for bringing sudden changes that don't really consider people. It's Uranus doesn't consider people. It doesn't consider emotions. It doesn't consider the past, traditions, what we think is right, what we've held as sacred. Uranus doesn't have anything to do with any of those things. Uranus is completely a sky god who in Uranus mythology couldn't stand Earth. It was like married with Gaia. It's called Gaia or something like that. It's spelled differently than how we say Gaia, but merged, created children, and then despised them because they weren't ideal, and buried some of them and told them to like go far, far away. The Titans, they were like disgusting or had cyclops and weird looking, not ideal bodies. And so Uranus is the part of our humanity that is craving something idealistic. And if it's not that, we just don't want it. And it's just do away with it at all. It doesn't matter. The emotions don't matter. Traditions doesn't matter. None of that matters. So having Uranus in an opposition with this new moon feels very cold and very, because we are going through this evolutionary process in relationship with the earth and with our connection with the earth, with intimacy, with food, resources, all of those beautiful Taurian things. And now Mars being at this certain phase of just getting home is just like, I'm just getting back from this this adventure. So Mars could be maybe a little bit like, I want to say possibly a little subdued, but Mars is also in the sign of Scorpio, which is known as the home sign of Mars, one of them, because Mars is connected with Aries and also connected with Scorpio. So Mars is considered to be strong in Scorpio. And we want Mars to be strong. We want a healthy Mars energy that is brave and protecting, because Mars is a warrior planet. It is about protecting the young and the weak, people, things, anything that can't protect itself. Mars is known to be the planetary force of protection, establishing boundaries, keeping those boundaries, and fighting the good fight. We want that. We need that. So yeah, the opposition feels like it's a one of those things where you just don't know. You just don't know what's going to happen. And we will find out what's going to happen, because with Uranus and Mars, both of those are very like up in the surface. It's very, we will see it. We will know about it. When we talk about Pluto processes, things that happen in the Plutonian realms, we may never know about them. There's things going on that we will not, unless you were in the room with the conversation happening or with that act taking place, you will not know. Whatever we see on a camera, that's a Neptunian function. And that can be changed. That can be deceptive. Being there behind the closed doors and seeing what actually happened, that's a Plutonian thing. Okay, so I mentioned that after the new moon, the Mars Sun conjunction is going to happen on the 18th. And this is going to start off a new Mars. So we had a new moon on the 12th and the 13th, wherever you're at, the 12th, 13th of November. And then we have a new Mars happening on the 18th. So there's just a lot of new, fresh movement happening in the sign of Scorpio, which is about frozen patterns of memory in our body waters, of crystalline codes, of emotional imprints that are so deep psychologically at a soul level. Psyche is actually, etymology is soul. But for some reason, psychologists don't use the word soul, but a psychologist is an ologist of soul. So a lot of that deep psychological soul information is being, I want to say, excavated, brought up into the light. And the thing about Scorpio is that it's not ever going to be totally in the light. We will feel it. We'll have an awareness of it. We'll notice how much we've changed emotionally, how much those crystalline structures of our emotional waters have greatly changed. Think back like 10 new moons ago in Scorpio, 10 years ago, how much you have changed in your emotional response. Notice also at this new moon where you begin to feel fearful, where you begin to fear your old reactivity, your old friend fear and reactivity. Notice when you begin to feel those things, and don't shame yourself for that. That's very human. Fear is very human. We're never going to escape it. Just as much as we're never going to escape joy, we will never escape fear. Notice the way it feels you. Where do you feel it? How is it moving? And remember this, please remember this all through the rest of Scorpio season and even through this whole Scorpio lunation. You could say the next 30 days from November 12th, as we're in the Scorpio lunation. Everything will be okay when you are okay with everything. Quote by Michael Singer from the book Untethered Soul. Thank you so much for watching this video. It came out to be a lot longer than I thought. I'll be back on here tomorrow, so look out for another video. I'm going to go through the all 12 signs, letting you know how the Scorpio new moon is impacting you personally, and I'll pull a card because that has been so fun. I was just looking around for the deck, but I'll pull a card. We'll talk about some herbs and it'll be great. And so thank you. And I look forward to connecting with you soon.